Welcome back to Careers with Miss V. I'm so excited to bring another incredible guest. Today we are meeting with Monica Malhotra, who is the founder and CEO of the Gaggler Middle East. I love the name, Monica. I have so many questions about what you do at your organization. But before we do that, I want to welcome you to my Careers podcast and thank you for being here. And then I want to take you all the way back to early teens and find out what the younger Monica was thinking about when she was dreaming of her future career.
Well, Maria, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's always a pleasure to speak with somebody like yourself and to share my personal experience. So thank you. So the younger, my teenage self. So I'd say the younger Monica was very different from who I am today, of course. The younger Monica, I think, kind of grew up in Dubai. And so really the focus for her was to go out and see the world. And I was fortunate enough that I was able to go overseas to the United States for my college education. So at that time, to be honest, the only thing I was really thinking about is just getting out there and seeing what was out there. Having, been raised in a very sheltered environment that Dubai was at that time. It's obviously a much more global environment now. But really, I sort of went with certain, I would say, conditioning. I come from a very like a business finance background, family rather. So I went to college with that in mind. And it's when I got to college when I realized, like, wow, there's so much more to than just finance and business. So and I think that's the beauty about, like, with American educational programs, especially at that higher level, where you really, with a liberal arts focus, you can really try out a lot of different subjects. And so that, I think, shaped me. I did end up graduating with an economics and accounting degree, but it left a lasting impression on me. And so that experience then really shaped, I think, who I became, when I went out into the business world and then later on in life too.
Monica, who would you say were your greatest career role models as you were growing up?
So I'd say my career role models have changed, over time. As a young teen, I had thought my father was my role model. He was a qualified accountant from the UK and worked at the Big Four and, achieved a lot of success in his own right in that organization. And I thought that's what I wanted. And I went to college, graduated from college. My first role was with a Big Four company. And I realized soon after that, that may not be the right path for me, just because as much as I find numbers intriguing, I don't love them that much. And so I realized I wanted to maybe do something a little bit more creative and set my sights on pursuing a career in management consultancy, which I felt better suited me and allowed for me to use a broader skill set. And through that, through that job, I actually met a wonderful senior partner, a female partner actually, who then became my role model, because she was this woman who had obviously achieved the success in a very male-dominated world, but did it in her own way. So she still balanced, she had a family, she had kids. And so then that kind of became my role model, trying to make that possible, having work, having success, but then also being, a mother and a wife and things like that. So it's changed over time.
And I love that you're saying that, because I think young people today are concerned in terms of getting it right. And there's a lot of pressure being put on them to almost get it right at such a young age. And to hear you say that, the role models changed depending on where you were and on that journey is, I think, probably the most essential component of a career journey, and helping a young person understand that is amazing. So thank you for doing that. I want to dive into the Gaggler. Okay. Tell me what the Gaggler is all about and why it's called the Gaggler, because I think the name behind the brand is definitely, there's got to be a story there.
There is a story there, actually. So what the Gaggler is, it's an online wellness platform specifically for women in this region. We are a Dubai-based company, so most of our readership does come from the UAE. So when I say online platform, we're a website. We create content around personal well-being. So it's very broadly defined. We do cover your traditional topics of wellness, like mental, physical, and emotional health, but we also talk about beauty and fashion, but in a purposeful manner. So it's how to kind of make the best use of what you have, because we're all beautiful from the inside, and just sort of bringing that to the outside. So that's what the Gaggler does. We publish content. We also have a social community of women, and we run events in wellness and business entrepreneurial topics. The overall goal literally is to be where our female community is, and to support them and help them with expert advice, online content, anything to really just inspire, educate, and empower them, to achieve their highest potential. The name. So the name came from the word gaggle. A lot of us know what that word is, and we always associate it with a loud group of geese, I guess. But what people don't know is that the gaggle can also be used to describe a collective. And so when I think of the Gaggler, it is a collective of women on two sides, right? So we have women who are wanting to take charge of their personal well-being. They have questions, they want answers. But then we also have amazing women on the other side who are experts in many different fields, and are there, passionate to help other women achieve, their best versions of themselves. So it's really that collective, and we're a women-led and women-run company. So it's women everywhere. So that's what the Gaggler looks like to me, from that word. And also the sound. I think when women get together and they're very passionate about a common topic, there's that sound of creativity, of passion. So that's what the Gaggler is.
That is
A
so
loud group of women.
That is just so inspiring. And I want to tap into a couple of things that I heard as you were describing that. My first tap in is into wearing my hat as a practitioner, and looking at what research says and how people choose a career. What I'm hearing you say is it's not just your job. It's almost, there's a social cause behind it, in this identifying that you want to be empowering women through your online platform. Why women, Monica? And I know that this is something that we hear a lot about. And I ask you this question because as young people are starting to really identify who they are and what is important to them, the future of work, we're seeing more young people wanting to work with purpose, as opposed to what we might have seen maybe 2 decades ago, where young people were looking for careers of longevity. And in looking at that now and hearing that you have really honed in on a very specific type of service with a specific type of purpose, why women and why empowerment in terms of well-being?
So my answer to this question will also kind of touch on, I think, the previous question, when you said that the younger generation are, really trying to get it right. So first off the bat, I'll say you're never really going to get it perfectly right. Life, and I think learning, is a journey, and not a destination. So the reason why women is, honestly, from my own personal experience, I came from a very traditional family who did the best. They sent me to, the best high school, the best college. I was so fortunate with many of the educational opportunities I had because of my family. But I kind of went through my early years, I don't want to say autopilot, but there was a sort of a set, you know what I mean? Like there was a set plan, and okay, you've got to do this because this worked for, for other people in our family, the elders. And it wasn't until I went to the US and realized there were whole other opportunities. And I really, in some ways, found myself, and those 4 years were really, and so fundamentally impactful that, I could actually do anything I put my mind to it. I didn't have to stick to the plan. But I did graduate with the degree that, obviously my parents wanted me to graduate with. I did my first job was with a Big Four accounting firm. I did that. But then as I started working, I realized it just didn't really quite feel right. And I started to look for my other options, applied for grad school, went to got an MBA. That led me to be able to get the job that really then allowed me to, work with numbers, but then also be more creative. And honestly, those years as a management consultant then opened up so many other opportunities. I worked in pharma, I worked in investment banking, and each role allowed me to explore a different part of myself. And when I say explore, it helped me know what I liked. It also helped me know what I didn't like, what didn't resonate with me. So, long story short, I feel like as women, and this is just my personal experience, but I just feel like as women, maybe we're more likely to just go along with the plan than maybe men. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to change it for myself. And then when I changed it for myself, I started to meet lots of other women who were kind of in the same place as me, highly educated, highly experienced, great professional track record, but lost and unfulfilled. And that's when I made a change in my life, and I did it as late as 40. So, it's never too late. That's another message. And so that's why I focus on women. It's just what resonates with me, and I want to help as many women as I can know that no matter what age you're at and what you've done in the past, that there's always something better that you can do, because we've all been put on this planet, I think, for a purpose. And I want to help women find what that purpose is, or that higher potential that they were put here for, in whatever capacity that I can, whatever capacity the Gaggler platform can. And that's it. Yeah.
Sounds like a calling.
It is. I seriously, it really is. I spent so many years trying to figure out why I was here. Literally, I would ask that question to myself, like, what is my purpose? And I think, and it hasn't been until recently where I've realized that I think my purpose is to connect people, connect people who need help and with people that can help. I mean, I'm not a wellness practitioner, but I think I have, some sort of ability to bridge relationships.
Amazing. Monica, I can go on and on and on. I am very conscious of our time. I'm going to tap into, I know that young people, they don't really understand the growth of, or the traditional idea of climbing that career ladder. How do you go from being a student to being a founder or a CEO? What's that like? What type of experiences should a young person prepare themselves for if they aspire to either be the founder of their own entity or even become a CEO?
So that's a great question. I mean, for me, it took a pretty long, duration to get to that founder position. I actually now don't think that it needs to take that long. I mean, in my work, I meet so many young people that are half my age, and they're already, they're entrepreneurs in their own right and have business ideas and are going out getting funding. So I don't think it's a matter of like there's a specific plan. What I would say is, and this is what I would say to my younger self, and it's what I say to my kids, is think about what you enjoy, think about what makes you feel that aliveness, no matter what it could be. I always felt really great when I help people, and it sounds corny, I know, but I remember that. And now when I do my work, like I'm still doing that in a different capacity, but I'm still helping people. And so what's interesting is that, as a young girl, when I would help people and give before I took, and the joy that made me feel, I'm actually doing that now in a business sense, So I think it's very important for young people to reflect and think about what they enjoy, what makes them get up in the morning and really be passionate about doing something. And then try and maybe even speak to others, maybe in that space, possibly to understand, okay, what's it like to be in that industry? What's it like to be in this business? And then try and figure out, what kind of either career or maybe even their own business that they could maybe craft from putting those together, So it's not a particular path, and it doesn't have to be as long as mine.
The world today is, I think it's probably the most exciting time to be developing one's career, because there are no rules. And in living in this digital world, there are no geographical challenges like we would have faced in, 20 years ago or even less than 20 years ago. Monica, I want to dive into your top tips. I know that you say don't plan your actions by looking at what other people are doing. If you want to pave your own way, you might have to accept that it is a lonely path and you may not have other examples to compare yourself with. As a founder myself, I get that. I understand because when you are creating something, most often you're creating it because it doesn't exist. What is your greatest strategy for resilience when you know that the road ahead of you feels a little bit lonely because you're creating something that didn't exist before you started creating it?
Yeah, very good question. So when things get, being an entrepreneur is amazing. There's great highs and there are tremendous lows as well. And when things get particularly challenging, honestly, I go inwards. It sounds counterintuitive, but I go inwards and really just sit in the situation and ask myself, like, what's happening, and it sounds very, very kind of woo-woo, but it actually does. I get answers that way, and then when I have those answers, I then go out, right? And I'll speak with my network. It's very important to have a network of people around you. And by network, I don't mean that these are just people you talk to whenever you have a problem. No, I mean, this is like, I engage with my network on a consistent basis. So I have people that have surrounded myself with that are entrepreneurs themselves. So when they are, when I have a challenge, they'll empathize and they'll know, kind of what I'm going through, right? And then there are others that I look to because they have years of experience beyond me, and can serve as an advisor, an informal advisor. So I think it's really important to kind of surround yourself with the right people as a strategy. But first and foremost is always check in with yourself, right? Because the answers are within you. And I found that that's really, really held me in good stead. And what have you found? I mean, have you done that in your being an entrepreneur?
Definitely. I can totally resonate with what you're saying. And I think I've had to learn along this journey to trust myself more. And
Exactly.
I found that early in my founder career, entrepreneur days, I was asking the opinion of people that never did what I was doing and they never created anything. And yet I held their opinion with such high regard. And I remember at one point thinking, what are you asking this person this for? They're great to chat about other things, but how can they even begin to understand? And you're right. I had to tap into other entrepreneurs, and not just any entrepreneur. I also found that there was a specific type of entrepreneur that I would want to surround myself with. And by that, it's not ego driven. It's really, when you're looking for a solution, what you want to do is speak to an entrepreneur who is a solution thinker as opposed to, I don't think all entrepreneurs are made of the same thread. And I do think that I have a very specific way of thinking, and I need to be engaging with entrepreneurs who really will think that way. And sometimes I need someone the total opposite. So I've had to learn to trust myself.
Absolutely.
Would you say that inner gut feeling, that being able to say, Monica, you know what, you got this, you can do this?
Yeah. No, that inner intuition, it's really important to tap into. We all have it. And it's honestly, it's like a muscle. Like you go to the gym to work out, your muscles. Work out your intuition, ask yourself more often. And the more often you do it, the more you'll find that will grow to be so strong where you'll get the right answers at the right time fairly quickly. Because I mean, you're right. If you ask 100 people, a question, you get 100 different answers when you have the answer inside of you already.
You do. And you have to trust yourself. I love point number 2 in you saying, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Failure is the outcome of success. And there are learnings to be made in making those mistakes. And as an entrepreneur, would you say that is pretty much a regular thing every day? As you try something, it worked, it didn't work, you figure it out, and you have to keep moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think my definition of failure has changed so much. I mean, failure at the end of the day, it's like success. It's just an outcome. You did, A and B, and out came C, and it's either a failure or a success. And I think when people look at it as just an outcome, that's so much more powerful, because out of that comes learning, what worked, what didn't work. And I wish more people would do that. It took me a long time to get my head around it, but I mean, it's through failure, that there's a saying, and I hope I get it right, but it's through failure that success is born. And it is true, because you're able to then articulate what didn't work and try something else. And it's yeah, I mean, it's a message that I give to my kids every day. I feel like they're so hard on themselves, like, I've got to get this right. What are other people going to say? What are my friends going to say? And I have kids that are 13 and 9, and this is their thought pattern. So I try and drill it into them, because, you want to fail. It's better to fail now than like when you're, later in life, and learn those lessons as quickly as you can.
And would you say, and this is how I began to perceive this on my journey as an entrepreneur, is failure is out of context unless you put it in context. It's like, how do we measure success or failure really depends on the context of the situation. And so I think when we think about success and failure, wearing my practitioner's hat, what I see are young people using the subtle societal belief system of what success is and what it isn't, kind of tapping into what you were saying. Some people are going to tell you do this or do that, and it's only because it worked for somebody else and society has said, it works, do it. So I really encourage young people to think differently about how they define success and why it's called a failure. Like, who decided that something was failing,
Exactly.
and it goes, I mean, this conversation can go deeper and deeper, but I'm going to bring it to a close and go right back to the beginning. Monica, it has been an incredible pleasure speaking with you today. I have so many more questions. We might need a part 2 to this.
Happy to do that. Absolutely.
Keep us posted if you're a young person watching this interview. I hope that you're walking away with the realization that there's no one right path to take. Monica is an example of how career opportunities evolve into those next opportunities that you can't see coming until you've gone through that previous experience. Find your purpose, get inspired, and take action are the things that I'm walking away from this conversation. And I know, Monica, that is exactly what you guys are doing by empowering women, because by empowering women, you're really empowering society. So thank you for being here. This was an incredible conversation. I spoke with Monica Malhotra, who is the founder and CEO of the Gaggler Middle East. Monica, how can we find you if we wanted to reach out to the Gaggler?
Oh, yeah. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Just look for the Gaggler, and please follow us. And you can also find all our great content on thegaggler.com.
And that brings us to the end. Thank you for watching. I will see you at my next Let's Talk Careers with Miss V.